Answer. That's the nothing personal word of the day. It is Monday, June 9th, 2025. Answer as in, how will the Oklahoma City Thunder answer their Game 1 loss? How will the Indianapolis Pacers answer? See if I am right here talking to you. I am frozen. We are live. If you can hear me, I'm going to keep going. I may have easily pressed something that would put me in a position to be frozen, but here I am. We're good. 4869. Answer. That's the nothing personal word of the day. It is Monday, June 9th, 2025. I had so many choices. The pre-production meeting was a fight with me and Coco and Jack. Do we start with the French Open final? You can bet your sweet bippy we're getting to that. Talk about Stanley Cup, NBA Finals, what happened with baseball this weekend. I said we got to start right now with SGA because anytime there's a must-win, well, the finals of a tennis tournament, that seems like a must-win. No, it's not, because you lose that, you're okay. You go to the next tournament. It's not the end of the world. It's not like Sinner is no longer the number one ranked player. Maybe not. But you know, my pick of the day was the Thunder to rebound, because the last time they lost Game 1 in this playoffs was against the Nuggets, and then they went ahead and won Game 2 by 43 points. So I told you winning by 11 was not exactly going to be heavy lifting for the Thunder, because they're that good. They have the most double-digit victories in all of basketball this year. They are simply the machine that you can, like the Terminator, put a hole in him, but he'll regenerate and come back and be just fine. The key to bouncing back in a Game 2 after a Game 1 loss, it's one of my favorite things that happens in the clubhouse after a Game 1 loss, whether it's of a series, regular season, playoffs. Anytime you're in a 5 or 7 game series and you lose Game 1, there is all this narrative, which is this it? Did Indiana finally find the kryptonite for Oklahoma City? Is it possible that Indiana's three-point shooting will finally neutralize that which Oklahoma City does? Will there be enough experience with such a young team to be able to perform in the finals? And it just goes on and on and on with one loss. And here's what the players are doing in the clubhouse, in the locker room after the one loss. They're having a beer, they're picking up their kid, and they're going home. That's it. All of the things that we speculate on in the media, for those who have never been inside the clubhouse or part of the front office, you don't think about it in the way that fans do, because I get the emotion. It's hard to forget about a loss when you're a fan. You feel it. Whether you have money on the game, whether you have emotion on the game, whether you have both, players tend to have the shortest memories. Think of what closers need to have in order to be a closer. And so Game 1 ends, Game 2 starts, but there's a whole group of people who are focused in a way on the game that certainly does make me smile, and that is league executives and broadcast executives. What they're doing, and they assign, this is true, there are people who are assigned their whole job, monitor social media. Let us know if something's bad. Let us know if we're missing something that we can work into the broadcast. Let us know if we're missing something that we can work into the game day operation. Let us know, because we may know from you faster than me whether we've run out of hot dogs. Let's just monitor the sitch. Well, there was a clear sitch during and at the end of Game 1, and that was the fans had this view that the court during the NBA Finals didn't have enough gravitas, that without the NBA Finals script logo, without anything making you think that it's the NBA Finals, that you thought you were watching a regular season game. To which my response would have been, it's June. The regular season ended in April. If you don't know the date, you don't feel the weather, or you live in a place that has 22 hours of daylight or darkness, all right, maybe you've lost track of time. But I think for the rest of us, it's pretty clear that we are deep in the playoffs with an Eastern Conference team playing a Western Conference team. Even the Cavs know that you're getting pushed text alerts over NBA finals that you normally wouldn't over game 42. But I digress. Because social media became this avalanche of insane, vinegary, substantive anger. And what did the NBA do? And what did Disney do? They said, all right, we hear you. We got you covered. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to give it the proper attention it deserves. We're going to add the Larry O'Brien trophy. And if you're listening to this, then you don't know what I'm talking about. But if you're watching live on the Nothing Person with David Samson YouTube channel, the minute you press subscribe is the minute these trophies will come into being. If you look at the top photo, look at that great Larry O'Brien virtual trophy. It looks so bad that it looked like some sort of shop you would have gotten on the 1980s 42nd Street and 7th Avenue, where you walk in and you walk out and you say, did anyone see me? And then you realize there's a line out the door. Except then they looked at the Larry O'Brien trophy and said, that doesn't look so great. What can we do now? So the bottom picture is the second half. They digitally changed, got rid of the trophy, and put in the final script. Now, interestingly enough, if you look at that closely, you'll notice that the finals, the script logo, that always comes with brought to you by YouTube TV. I mention that because when you get a presenting sponsorship, you sign a contract. Part of the presenting sponsorship contract can be whenever the intellectual property, the finals, is used, it must be accompanied with presented by YouTube TV, which is why, Coco, when you look at the score bug, when you're watching the game and it says the finals, the score bug has presented by YouTube TV. ESPN, Disney, they don't have the deal with YouTube TV. That's a league deal, a presenting sponsorship of the finals that is split by all the NBA clubs equally. But when Disney is asked, hey, let's go ahead and put a logo on the court, you choose a logo that does not mean you have to accompany it with advertising that you're not benefiting from, which is why you saw the trophy. But the trophy was so bad, it got so many complaints that Disney had to agree to put the finals logo up because that's what everyone was asking for. And then as part of that, if you go back to the picture, Coca, you'll see the YouTube TV ad as well, which is not, you can see it right there on the screen. Now, what you don't see except on the upper right of those photos is YouTube TV already had court signage. They were under the feet of both coaches. That is league mandated additional signage put in when you host a Jewel event. The league comes to you with its national sponsors, and you must change your arena to reflect that. Much like when you host the World Series, MLB comes to you and says, here's the following 8 sponsors you're going to have to put up on your outfield wall, behind the plate, in between innings, on the first and third base digital boards. There's all sorts of rules about sponsorships. Now, Coco, we could get into way more detail when we would talk about what happens if the league has a deal with Pepsi and your ballpark has a deal with Coke. How do you deal with that? And believe me, there are rules and you have to follow them. And before the first World Series game, there's people walking around the stadium with clipboards and cameras and checking with sponsors. It's a whole Megillah. But I was picturing so well and laughing at what was going on at halftime to get rid of Larry O'Brien and bring back the final script. Just a little bit of business. Something else that happened during that game, we told you that Oklahoma City was going to rebound, and they did. We gave you a wait to see on Friday. Remember, after Oklahoma City shot so poorly in game 1, if you go to davidsamsonpodcast.com, our official wait to see was Oklahoma City will shoot better than 39.8% in game 2. Guess what? That's a yes. They shot 48.8%. Game 3 will be Wednesday night in Indiana, Tune in ABC, 8:30 p.m. for a pivotable? That's not a word, David. 4869. Please tune in Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. as Game 3 of the NBA Finals in the pivotal matchup where Indiana tries to keep home court advantage and Oklahoma City tries to get back control of the series. I spent yesterday from 9 a.m. I wish I had information, which I didn't have. The men's final started around 9:27 a.m. last night. I watched the men's finals between Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz from 9:27 till 2:58 p.m. 5 hours, 25 minutes, didn't move. I mean, I moved to go to the bathroom. I switched rooms in my house. So I moved a bit, but didn't go outside, didn't go running, didn't watch any content. I couldn't turn away from this French Open Finals, which was a all-time epic classic. And you could just feel something was happening because I'm in awe. If you've ever played tennis, a couple things to note. A tennis serve is the equivalent of a 100-mile-an-hour breaking ball. You have zero chance of getting a bat on it. If you get into a tennis court with one of these players, Sinner, Alcaraz, Roscoe Tanner, I don't care who it is, you're not touching racket to ball. Forget getting it back. That's not even worth talking about. These guys, the way they serve, and yet they were breaking serve left and right. Sinner gets off to a 2-set lead. He is just playing so well. He's the number one player in the world. He's the one who got suspended for steroids. Remember, he got a massage, and apparently during the massage, something got ingested into his body that made him test positive. That's the old story. We call it our DS, which is David Samson. But my forever word now that you can use with me, DS stands for diarrhea story. That is the special story that people tell, like Robinson Cano. Oh, I had such a bad stomach. That's why I had to take steroids. Oh, I didn't do that. But, sir, the only way to get those steroids in your body is to shoot them into your tuchus. Oh, well, I didn't do that. Oh, that was my wife's. There's been a litany of stories. I love when I hear a new DS. The massage oil DS, that was a special one. The good news is that Sinner was suspended 3 months. The bad news is he did not miss a major. It's the equivalent of a 4-game suspension for a starting pitcher. Not very meaningful, is it? Where you start on a Monday and say, okay, I'll now drop my appeal and start my suspension. And guess what? The day you're back is the day you'd start anyway. Which is why you often see starting pitchers get banned for 5 games, disciplined for 5 games, because then it can actually make a difference. And when you appeal it, it gets brought down to 4. That's the equivalent of being brought to 0. So Sinner being banned from tennis in between majors, it's sort of like golf, where the object of the game and what you're measured on is you want to get to Djokovic. You want to get into the 20s like Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic in terms of winners of majors, which are the Australian Open, French Open. Now we head to Wimbledon and end with the U.S. Open in New York in September, in August, September. The match itself is one that you feel like you can't believe what you're seeing. That 2 players like gladiators can go at it for 5.5 hours with a level of tennis that was awe-inspiring. This wasn't people slogging through an ultra marathon where by mile 50 they can barely move because they're exhausted and schwitzy and they've got sort of weird things coming out of their body. These guys looked fresh as a pancake in hour 5 like they had just walked on the court. They're hitting the ball back and forth doing rallies that up to 23 shots. They are getting to match points. Sinner had match point on Alcaraz. Couldn't convert 3 in a row. And an hour and 43 minutes later, Alcaraz had a match point in a tiebreaker. Was serving for the match, got broken. Sinner serving for the match, broken. It was insane. Epic, I would call it. What I liked about it is what Alcaraz said after the match and what I wanted to focus your attention on. It's a lesson that we all should have. He won his fifth Grand Slam. He's 22 years old. He's a long way from 20, but he won his fifth Grand Slam. He said after the match, remember, it's a 22-year-old. It's a kid. He said the match is not finished until he wins the last point, meaning his opponent. A lot of times people came back from match point down in a final of a Grand Slam or even in other matches. I just wanted to be one of those players who saved match points in a Grand Slam final and ended up winning. The reason why I love that view that you just have to keep fighting is that he gave you three basic principles of competitive being and competitive success in one post-match interview. And we're going to counter that to the women's final post-interview, which was a total ridiculous bit of PR. But Alcaraz is saying to you, never give up, Jimmy V. That's always good. No matter where you stand during a match, no matter how bad it is, never give up. It's like baseball. You get 27 outs. Once in a while, you'll be the Diamondbacks and score 7 in the ninth and win a game, or the Marlins and score 8 in the eighth and win a game. Once in a while, it happens. That's good enough to keep trying. 2, recognizing that you dare to be different and then achieving your greatness by getting after it. He said he wanted to be known as one of those guys who's match point down and then wins. How rare that is. And he said, well, wait a minute. I'm now match point down. I want to be that guy. In order to do that, I got to win not 3 points. He was down love 40. You can't hit a 7-run home run. You can't win 4 games in a row when you're down 3-0. You got to win the next one. Alcaraz said, I got to win the next point. Win it, I got to win the next point. The strength, the mentality, the intestinal fortitude of this guy that was on display for 5+ hours was simply mind-numbingly awesome to watch. Texting back and forth with someone, Marty Fish, our good friend Marty Fish. You don't have to look at me, David. He is someone you should follow on X and just someone you should know his story and watch his documentary, which we reviewed. And to have a tennis player who would acknowledge that a professional tennis player, that what he was watching was maybe the greatest match in the history of tennis, and this man knows the history of tennis, while it's happening. And I wrote back, that sounds like recency bias. He said, well, we'll see. That was in the third set. 4-6, 6-7, 6-4, 7-6, 7-6. Alcaraz did it. Give Sinner credit. Sinner, after the match, was interviewed and said, man, that sucked. He didn't seem angry, didn't seem like a poor sport, didn't seem like a sore loser. He seemed like a guy who simply got beaten. He acknowledged the chances he had. He acknowledged the match points he had. He acknowledged the greatness that he was involved with. And he said, I may not sleep. Sometimes you have days like these. Nothing I can do right now. That is somebody who is a mensch. That is somebody who is understanding of how to be a champion. The reason that I bring up that it's hard for people to be champions or to be gracious losers is because we keep seeing example after example of people who continue to be sore losers and think that they've got a microphone and therefore can exhibit their emotions and then dismiss it later and apologize and say, oh, sorry, it was just emotional. Did you watch the Saturday women's final? You start by congratulating Coco Gauff. You start by saying she won a great match. She won a Grand Slam. She won the French Open. 21 years old. It's her second Grand Slam. Potentially, the first American to have won the French Open in over a decade. It was fantastic. There were unforced errors. There was weather issues with the wind, and the roof was open on center court. But it was one of those matches where Coco won straight up. After the match, Sabalenka, the number 1 ranked women's tennis player who lost in the finals, she went crazy. And she went crazy in a way. And I was a little surprised about this. She basically said that, I don't know about you, but Coco would not have been able to beat me if I hadn't played so badly. And anyone would have beaten Coco the way Coco was playing, including the woman I beat in the semis, who was the two-time defending champion, had won the French Open several times. She went on this entire diatribe about this was a match that was lost by me, not won by her. She went into all sorts of things about basically impugning Coco and this victory. It seemed very strange at the time because while you're watching it happen, you're thinking to yourself, my guess is her PR people are losing their mind. Number one. Number two, there's PR people going to Coco saying you're going to have to respond to this. Let's take the high road. Let's figure out a way to do this. And Coco's responses were perfect. She makes a lot of money off the court, and you can tell why. She is someone, Coco Gauff is, who you'd want to represent your brands. Coco Gauff is somebody who, for whatever reason, has the it factor. And when you're going into business with somebody, you're looking for that it factor. When you're putting money behind a player, you're trying to figure out whether they have that factor, whether they'll embarrass you off the court, whether you'll be apologizing on their behalf, and if so, how many times. All the different things that you do when you figure out who is going to be the beneficiary of your marketing budget. And Coco has been the beneficiary of multiple companies' marketing budget because she's that person. So it was not surprising to me when Coco came out after the match and said, hey, the way she's been playing, she had to have been the favorite to win. So she was the best person that I could have played in the final. Her being number one in the world was the best person to play. Therefore, it was the hardest matchup if you just go off stats. And she said very nicely, responding to what Sabalenka said, is, I don't agree with that. I'm sitting here as the champion. Because Sabalenka was letting you know that Coco didn't actually win it. Sabalenka lost it. Let's just acknowledge that what Sabalenka did was going to require some sort of further action. And Coco and her team decided, let that further action come from Sabalenka. And it was a brilliant strategy. You address it the way Coco did, very easily and quickly in 2 sentences. I'm the champion, proud to be here, played the number one player in the world. Sabalenka's PR people had to do something because she was getting crushed. So she released an entire statement on Instagram. Sabalenka did. 2 things are sure. 1, she didn't write it. 2, she didn't want to say it. 3, her sponsors and or coaches told her, you are releasing this statement because you are looking like a fool and we are invested in you. She wrote, yesterday was a tough one. Coco handled the conditions much better than I did. She was the better player yesterday, and I wanted to give her the credit she earned. You all know me. I'm always going to be honest and human in how I process these moments. I made over 70 unforced errors, so I can't pretend it was a great day for me. But both things can be true. I didn't play my best, and Coco stepped up and played with poise and purpose. She earned that title. Respect. Time to rest, learn, and come back stronger. How do you feel if you had to grade that statement? You've heard a lot of statements on this show. What would you say? I'm going to give it a C+, B-, and I'm going to be like different judges where you hold up a score according to what the purpose of the statement was. Genuineness, 0.4. Grammar, 8.9. Purposeful completion, 6.9. Mission accomplished, 3.6. Does anyone read that and say, oh, obviously she means this. She doesn't mean the whining and poor sportsmanship and sore loserness that she showed after the match, blaming it, hey, man, I was emotional. Well, everybody does post-match press conferences, and barely anybody reacts that way. It's sort of like my favorite, which I keep bringing up and I love it. You can't take Ambien and say that's why I'm racist. Roseanne Barr tried it, can't do it. Ambien does not make you racist. It may make you call people you don't want to call. It doesn't make you racist. Putting out a statement saying, oh, she's the champion. I didn't play well. She's got poise. Nope. Doesn't make up for the fact that you're a sore loser. Doesn't matter that it's 10 minutes after a match where you got absolutely pummeled. Doesn't matter. It's like a team, Coco, getting no hit and coming out and saying, God, I mean, our hitters just stink. Instead of coming out and telling the truth, which is that pitcher just shoved it up our keister. I'm glad I watched it. All right, let's go to break. When we come back, we are going to review a 2-part documentary, as I told you we would, and I watched it this weekend. And then we're going to talk about why in Arizona, people are despondent and not because it's 180 degrees. We'll talk about all that after the break. Welcome back to Nothing Personal. Thank you for being with us. Don't forget to download, rate, and review. Subscribe to our show wherever you get your podcasts. We're on DraftKings Network live 8 to 10 a.m. You can find DraftKings Network. You don't need any sort of magnifying glass and a cloak or a dagger. DraftKings Network live 8 to 10. Live to tape 8 to 10. You want to see live? You want to see EI-FI, then you just tune in to Nothing Personal with David Samson YouTube channel, and you got yourself a live show 5 days a week, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m., except when Coco and I take a day off, which isn't too often, might I add. I wasn't worried, Coco. When I make promises to the audience, I'm going to keep it. I'm going to watch Pee-wee as himself when I told you I'd watch it. 2 hour and 40-minute movies. I can't remember what they're on, but I want to say Max, but I could be wrong, Coco. It is on Max. Let's talk about Pee-wee Herman. When I say Pee-wee, what do you think of? Is there anyone of any age, Coco, when you say Pee-wee, and I assume word association, someone says Herman, do you have to be of a certain age to know who Pee-wee Herman was and the absolute force that he was? What about when I say Rubens? Do you say Paul? When I say Paul, do you say Rubens? Does anyone know that Paul Rubens was the actor who played Pee-wee Herman? Does anyone remember Pee-wee Herman's fall from grace when he was caught in a compromising position in a adult theater showing male porn? Anyone remember that? The cancellation of Paul Rubens, the mugshot of Paul Rubens. Does anyone remember my review of Blow? Funny, but no, I'm talking about Coke. That's the Johnny Depp movie. Paul Rubens is in that movie, not as Pee-wee Herman, as Paul Rubens. Paul Rubens decided that he would give an interview, a long master interview, like 40 hours worth of interviews to tell you about his life. The filmmakers who did the movie were not aware that he was dying because he kept it to himself. Pee-wee Herman, the character as played by Paul Rubens died of cancer while filming was happening of this documentary. He had been privately battling cancer for many, many years. I grew up not watching Pee-wee's Playhouse. I did not see any of Pee-wee's movies. I didn't know of the relationship between Pee-wee Herman and Phil Hartman. I was not aware of all of the people who got their start on Pee-wee's Playhouse. Lawrence Fishburne? Are you kidding me? The great actor? Turns out that Paul Rubens was quite the businessman. Turns out that Pee-wee Herman was a character that he devised as a way to make it, and make it he did. The reason why I would tell you to watch and spend 3 hours and 20 minutes of your time is that if it were 1 hour, 3 1-hour episodes plus a 20-minute little shtup at the end, that'd be something you'd binge like it was yesterday. As a matter of fact, I'm going to binge 8 25-minute episodes of a new series on Hulu called Adults. I'm going to find a way to do it this week. That's an easy binge, 4 hours. This one's 320. Pee Wee Herman as himself. Please watch it. I've got 2 more episodes to get through today, Coca, of The Better Sister on Amazon. I will get those out. That's with Jessica Biel and Elizabeth Banks. Zach and Miri make a porno, and The Illusionist, Jessica Biel, Elizabeth Banks. I will finish those 2 episodes today, and I will review the entire series tomorrow. It's called The Better Sister on Amazon. My elbow's dead. It popped. Is that what Corbin Burnes said when he called the trainer out last week? Corbin Burnes signed a 6-year, $210 million deal with the Diamondbacks, and he's DONE. He needs Tommy John surgery in what can only be described as a complete nightmare for the Diamondbacks, who are off to an inconsistent start, losing ground quickly to the Padres and the Dodgers, needing to figure out a way to get their season turned around, given the fact that they did not concede in any way to the strong National League West. As a matter of fact, they spent money in a way that made them uncomfortable at a level never before seen for the Diamondbacks. And just like that, poof. Exactly as Commissioner Selig would say to us, you sign a pitcher to a long-term deal and you're going to get screwed, as he would take a swig of his Diet Coke. And you know what? He's pretty much never been wrong. Corbin Burnes signing that 6-year, $210 and having Tommy John is worse than signing Madison Bumgarner and realizing he stinks. Why? When your baseball people make a decision that's wrong based on the quality of the player, who sign a player that's too old and no longer performing, or a young player who did perform but not consistently enough and then ends up not performing, you can evaluate your baseball people and you can live with those type of mistakes because it happens. Evaluating players is difficult. We evaluate those who evaluate players during the course of time. We do not look at one bad trade and say, my God. But when you sign a pitcher who gets Tommy John and will miss an entire 1.5 years of games, what do? Do you look at your GM? Do you look at your team president? No. If you're Ken Kendrick, you look at yourself. You look at yourself for signing a pitcher for 6 years at that number, and you say, that is the type of exposure that under no scenario should I put myself or my investors. That is the type of eggs in a basket that has cracks in it, both the eggs and the basket. Just think about what it means that Corbin Burnes starting a 6-year deal. Not only does he miss this year, which is year 1, he misses next year, which is year 2. Then he comes back and you're not really back to yourself by the time you're in year 3. And before you know it, you're in year 4. And when you signed the deal, you were pretty sure by year 4 you were going to get a diminished Corbin Burnes, but you would have had the benefit of a prime, amazing Corbin Burnes in years 1, 2, and 3. Uh-oh. This is the type of injury that actually has an impact, not just this year, but in the years ahead. Because when you've got one of your pitchers who's making money, and let me be clear, do you know who doesn't lose money by getting Tommy John? Raise your hand if you know, because I got an idea for you. Corbin Burnes. His contract is guaranteed. There's no injury exception. There's no way to make it not guaranteed if he's not on the roster on a certain day. There's none of that jazz and junk. Corbin Burnes will get every penny of his $210 million, and he'll only pitch for 4 of the years at best. Effectively, wait to see how many. Why am I so worked up over a 30-year-old getting Tommy John? Because when you're 32 years old coming back, even if you're a late 31, there is nothing guaranteed. And when you give 6 years to a 30-year-old thinking that he's going to perform through 36 without using needles in his wife's tushy, then I would tell you that it may not happen that way. And the Diamondbacks wake up and say, we've still got to pay Corbin Burnes next year. How does that impact our free agents to be? How do we put a team together? Do we now sign Zach Gallen back? What do we do with Merrill Kelly? Should we keep him? Should we not keep him? The funny part about this is that there may be a scenario under which you would have decided that with Corbin Burnes, it allows you to let players go, like a Zach Gallen or a Merrill Kelly. But then you realize that if you let those guys go as free agents, then who's going to be in your rotation? Then you realize something even funnier. Owners do this all the time. They keep track of how old they are. And they say, well, wait a minute. We can't throw away this year because then I'm going to get a year older. The players are getting a year older. And really, the only octogenarian owner who just says how badly he doesn't want things to happen, but they happen anyway, is Reinsdorf with the White Sox. Most of the octogenarian owners are trying very hard to figure out what can we do to win? How can we get something done? The Diamondbacks have not won the World Series since 2001. It's 25 years ago. Some teams are saying, hey, that's okay. That's not as long a drought as others, but he's been desperate to win a second ring. How do I know? Hi, I'm David Samson. I spent 14 years desperate to get a second ring. That feeling happens when you have felt something before but didn't quite enjoy it as much as you know that you would enjoy it a second time. And when you know the separating factor that a second ring would have, having more than one ring, even though the one ring is the real separator because there's so many people without a ring, and that's your view once you get the first ring, that you've done it, but then you immediately say, yeah, but it'd be pretty sweet to get the second. Ken Kendrick, ladies and gentlemen. So Corbin Burnes is going to have surgery, and here's what the result's going to be. I'm going to get a wait to see right. On June 2nd, 2025, when Corbin Burnes got hurt, I said when he walked off the mound, he's out till at least the All-Star game, even though the manager said, oh, it may not be anything. We may have dodged a bullet here. And I told you, you don't take a pitcher out with him complaining about elbow, having inflammation, and having it bing, bang, boom, 4 weeks. No chance, toilet pants. Little did I know that there was a UCL tear. But it's still a wait to see victory. When I talk to you about pitching injuries, I think it's just important for you to understand what I'm saying and imagine names. Let me give you in the top 10 starting pitching contracts. These are the top 10 highest paid starting pitchers. I'm going to give you some names. Tell me if you recognize any of the names and how they're doing. Number 10, Tyler Glasnow. O-U-T, H-U-R-T, D-O-N-E, M-A-Y-B-E. Number 7, Aaron Nola. Stinks. Has a 6+ ERA. He's pitching like a number 8 starter. Blake Snell, number 6. How's he doing? O-U-T. Remember how hurt he is? Jacob deGrom, number 5. Awesome. He is pitching fantastically. If you're not paying attention to the Texas Rangers because they can't hit and they don't win, and it's sort of like a Paul Skeens situation with the Pirates, well, he'll give you 8 strong yesterday and still not get a win because the Pirate offense is anemic to the point of Band-Aids required. DeGrom's been great. Number 4, Corbin Burnes, out. Number 2, Garrett Cole, out. Half of the top 10 either underperforming or not performing at all. What is the lesson that you learn? Anybody? Bueller? Way better to be David Stearns. I'm going to do a quick thing here for you, Coco. Just a quick love of David Stearns, the Mets GM, who got absolutely crushed by Mets fans, Coco included. You didn't do enough for our rotation. You got Manaea out. You got Montas out. This is going to be a nightmare. And what does he do? He scrapes together a rotation that is now amongst the best in Major League Baseball because he knows what he's doing. What the commissioner says to you time and time again, stop just taking the big names and overpaying them. You're not going to get the performance. Why don't you ask your GMs to be good at their jobs? That was owners' meetings every time. I've seen a lot of things in baseball. God knows I have. I've seen people get hit in the head. I've seen plays at first, second, third, home. I've seen batting practice injuries. I've seen people get clocked in the head by a fly ball. Thousands of games, 18 years. I've seen a catcher throw the ball to second and hit the pitcher on the way because the pitcher got in the way. I've seen a catcher throw to second, hit the batter in the head. You just see it all. This weekend, the Marlins had a situation that's getting some press, and I want to bring it up to you. They have a pitcher named David Weathers' son. Now, his name is Ryan Weathers, but to me, he's David Weathers' son, who is now pitching in the big leagues. Yes, that is a sign that I'm old. But David Weathers' son was warming up before the game started, does his last warm-up pitch. Here's what pitchers do as they throw their last warm-up pitch before the start of a game or before the start of an inning. They throw it in, and then they release off the rubber, and they walk either toward third or toward first base, and they do a little lap, and they take their glove off. They're scuffing their hand. They're putting their hand in their hair, on their elbow, whatever it is they can get the jelly, and they're just figuring it out. The catcher throws the ball to second base at the end of every warm-up. You've seen it a million times, pretending that there's a steal happening to warm up the catcher's arm. The shortstop or second baseman catches the ball, swipes a air runner. They throw it around the horn, back to the pitcher. Let's start the inning. Okay, great. Except Ryan Weathers got domed by his own catcher. And I don't mean like nicked on his elbow. He got hit square in the back of the head. If you haven't seen the video, make sure you YouTube it or Google it, do whatever you want. But the craziest part about it is the story. The craziest part is Ryan Weathers got hit, goes down. Trainer comes out. He's being pulled out of the game. This is major. He was hit in the head by a PP that was thrown from the catcher. And Ryan Weathers says, I'm good. Stays in the game. Pitches the first inning, second inning, third inning. Nick Fortes is so happy as the catcher, thinking, thank God he's fine. Except then Ryan Weathers said, I don't feel so good. And they pulled him out of the game. I don't want to be the one to impugn the training staff of the Miami Marlins. I will tell you, there's not one person left from when I was there. I don't want to impugn Major League Baseball for allowing this. What I do want to tell you is that it's never going to happen again. There will not be an opportunity for Major League Baseball to allow for someone to get hit in the head and for the team to decide whether or not that pitcher or player can keep going. You remember what the NFL had to do. They had to lose a couple billion in concussion settlements. And then they said, we have an idea. We're going to have a concussion protocol. We have another idea. We're going to have a neutral doctor because we know what team doctors do. They call up the president of the team. Hey, what do you think? Hey, we have no pitching. You got to let him keep pitching. Yeah, but he's got sort of a headache. He sees three of me. And I would say, have him aim for the middle one. That is me as president of the team, sadly. And that's why there have to be rules to let presidents and GMs not be presidents and GMs. In the NFL, your player, he's seen stars? No problem. Get out there. Give him some smelling salts. Give him a little shot. He's good. NFL finally said, not because they have this love for the players. It was because of money. It was because of lawsuits. Don't mistake like human behavior for the goodness of someone's heart. Often there's business that's a part of it. But in any case, here's what's going to happen. And Coco, I want this to be an official wait to see. MLB is going to have a concussion protocol, and it's going to take the decision out of teams' hands. And by the time the next collective bargaining agreement starts, that's going to be part of it. I'm not saying it's going to be next year, Coco. This is a wait to see that after the next collective bargaining agreement, which is being negotiated starting in 26, MLB will have certain concussion protocols where the decision of whether a player can continue will be taken out of teams' hands. MLB has got to do this. It is too risky. You get domed by a ball, no matter where you are, and you are risking permanent damage. You're risking death. And baseball had death on the field when a first base coach got killed, or third base coach, a guy named Coolbaugh, in a minor league game. And now all the first and third base coaches wear helmets. There will be something that has to be done about concussions. Ryan Weathers should not have been left in that game. Nothing personal pick of the day. We had a good weekend. We are back to 76 and 76. I want to remind you, on Friday, it was Corbin Day. Corbin has been pitching great, but we keep winning Corbin Day. We had the Nats plus money over the Rangers, and the Nats beat the Rangers Friday. We also had the Panthers beating the Oilers in Game 2. Did you watch Game 2 of the Stanley Cup? Holy shnikes. It went to overtime. Now, as much as I enjoyed the 5.5 hours of tennis and was in awe of what they do, watching those hockey players play, and as you get into the second overtime and you're just thinking, my God, I don't exactly understand how they can keep functioning. Their shifts are going from like a minute down to 20 seconds. You can barely do more than go back and forth on the ice one time. And Brad Marchand, the hated player, the mortal enemy of the Panthers, guess what he did? He scored the game-winning goal Friday night to give us our nothing personal pick of the day to even up the series at 1 heading into tonight's Game 3. And for Panther fans, you just got to love them. I get how hard it is to love somebody who you hated so badly. But isn't that the best type of player? Don't you want people on your team who you despised when they were the enemy and you love when he's on your team? Just always think of Dennis Rodman, please. Hated when he was a Piston. You become a Bull. You are loved. Charles Oakley, hated as a Bull. Make him a Nick. Oh, God, I love you. Very, very common. Brad Marchand should be loved. That game was totally insane, by the way. The Stanley Cup is just incredible. Did you see that really how that there was a anyway, whatever. It's hard to be 40 and play professional sports. Can we agree with that? Can we agree that Corey Perry scoring a goal as only the 5th ever 40-plus-year-old to score a goal in the Stanley Cup is pretty cool? Can we agree that just playing at 40 is pretty outrageous and then scoring at 40 is just unheard of? 5 times, that's it. Connor McDavid's been playing well. Let's just keep in mind that the Stanley Cup is now best of 5. We've got a game tonight, and we are going with the Oilers to win Game 3. They are plus 120. I think what we're going to do is keep taking the plus money in these games because it has been helpful. There is a baseball game that we're going to do tonight as well. The Padres-Dodgers open a 3-game series. It is an important series, and it's hard to say anything's important in the middle of June, but it is. Because for the Padres, when you feel like the ugly stepchild, you want to make a statement. When the Dodgers have been ordinary and have so many injuries, like 14 guys on their injury list, you want to be in a position where you win this series. When you've got Nick Pivetta on the mound, which the Padres do tonight, you want this to be the game that you get, so you only need one of the next 2. And I think they're going to get it. We're going to take Padres minus 105 over the Dodgers. So our 2-0 personal picks of the day, Oilers over the Panthers and the Padres over the Dodgers. I remind you that the reason we are 76 and 76 is we did get a loss this weekend when Walker Buehler got absolutely crushed by the Yankees on Friday night when I thought it would have been better. We'll be back after this break because we got another hour of nothing personal. Welcome back, hour two. I want to remind everyone, because you may have forgotten, every Wednesday we are going to do So You Want to Talk to Samson. This is part of our new 2-hour daily show. And we have our own phone number. And you are going to hear your voice on the show if you leave a voicemail. And it's good. 631 DPS 4869. That number again, 631 377 4869. Wait another 48 minutes. Then think of a question. Then call the number. Then we listen to it. Then we decide what's show worthy or not. And then we do an hour every Wednesday going through your voicemails. If for some reason you don't have a phone, which is weird, they're making me say this, Coke. I don't know where we got this from, but I'm just going to read it exactly as is. If you cannot, because charges do apply, reach 631-377-4869, please feel free to reach out to David Samson on Twitter at David P. Samson or Instagram at David P. Samson or on his website, www.davidsamsonpodcast.com. And your question has just as much a possibility of appearing on the show as if you call 631-377-4869. This message brought to you by the legal team of Meadowlark Media. All right. There you go. Legal teams. I love the legal teams. I love that I'm a lawyer, Coca, not practicing. I passed the bar. I went to law school. You guys, many of you know that I never practiced law. I went right into business. I immediately, after passing the New York State Bar, decided to sell newspapers over in Europe. But I've always been incredibly interested, obviously, in the law, incredibly interested in things that happen with our judicial system. Follow it closely. Part of the benefit of having a show like this and expanding it to 2 hours is we get to go in depth and cover some topics that may not have made a normal Monday show if we only had 1 hour. It is a very big deal what happened this weekend when a judge, her name is Claudia Wilkin, she approved the deal which is allowing for players to now get paid by colleges. You've heard so many programs talk about this House settlement and how it needed to be approved, and there was some question whether it would be approved, and if it were approved, what would it actually mean? And what does it have to do with me or my school or my children who play college sports? Let me explain. This is major that the House settlement got approved because there are now going to be what the executive branch, legislative branch, and judicial branch all seem to ignore more than anything else. And that is the concept of unintended consequences. Now, the funny part about our three branches of government is they will tell you that one of the things they examine is those unintended consequences. And I would tell you that more often than not, they are dealing with an issue before them. They look at precedent. They look at voting. They look at polls. They look at what their approval rating is. They are not often focused on, if I do X, what will happen with Y? If I make it so all these players, and make sure you understand what this settlement means. If you are a college player and you played after 2016, you are eligible to receive an allocation from a pot of money that is $2.8 billion. $2.8 billion in back damages was part of this House settlement. Back damages are damages to players who started school by 2016 and were not able to monetize their name, image, and likeness. I would like to go back to every traffic ticket I got at 70 miles an hour on a strip of highway that now has a speed limit of 70. I would like to go back if I were a major league athlete and my name was Greg Maddux and say, you're giving this schmuck $40 million? Forget it. I want $40 million. Give me that back pay. How is it possible that there was a lawsuit where there was a judge, where there was a panel, where there was anyone who said, yeah, this wasn't allowed back then, but it should have been. There wasn't this amount of money available, but there could have been. If there had been, the players would have gotten it if the rules were what they are today. They weren't. But this settlement of these lawsuits that were brought by players for Mario Chalmers on back, all trying to get a piece of a pie that wasn't theirs to get. And this is not me being, oh, corporate ownership, David. No. Can you imagine if we came to you as a consumer for a flight that you took 10 years ago and said, hey, gas is way up. We got to go back and you got to pay an extra $200 for that flight. Make sure you pay it. You'd laugh in their face. You'd say, come get it. Good luck. Well, somehow we got to a point in this case where not only was this a judgment and a settlement, more settlement than judgment, but it becomes a judgment when the judge says this settlement is now approved. $2.8 billion. And that's only the back damages. Here's the second part of this House settlement. Every college now has $20.5 million to spend starting in July of 25, starting right now in 3 weeks. They have $20.5 million to spend on their athletic program, meaning on the players. It's like a salary cap, except it's an NIL payment, except they're calling it revenue sharing. Now, of course, when I say every college, I mean the Power Four conferences, and I don't mean Yale, but it doesn't matter. What they're saying is, as part of this settlement, that the football programs that you've come to know and love at some of the schools some of you have even gone to, is that school will spend $20.5 million on its roster. But which roster? There's a breakdown. The majority of that 20.5 will go to football players because football drives most of the revenue. The second most of the 20.5 will be allocated toward basketball, men's, because that drives the second most revenue. Then whatever's left, a few scraps here and there, will go to other quote-unquote Olympic sports like baseball. And this is not me being hurt that the money's not going to baseball. This is me telling you the insanity of this settlement. As though this is going to somehow make things better for either the schools or the players. We just told you the story of Cooper Flagg. Whether he got $28 million from Fanatics and New Balance in 1 year over 5 years. We told you the story of the Texas Tech softball pitcher who got her second $1 million NIL deal. Do you know what's not part of the $20.5 million cap that players can use to get paid by schools directly? It's NIL deals done by players who, under a previous law, under a previous lawsuit, now have their name, image, and likeness rights to themselves to monetize. But what this settlement did, it created this new company. God, do I love when any branch of government creates a company. But I couldn't be happier for my friend at Major League Baseball named Brian Seeley, who used to be in the Department of Investigations. He's brilliant. He's fantastic. He got a new job yesterday because part of this settlement is that there's a new department whose sole job under the NCAA, their sole job is to enforce NIL deals that are done with college players. If your NIL deal is over $600, it has to be approved by this new company being led by Brian Seeley. Can you imagine the insanity of what I'm saying? Let's just take Cooper Flagg as my favorite example. Why would Duke allocate $20.5 million or any amount to Cooper Flagg when there will be boosters and NILs who will be more than happy to sign deals with, whether it's an NIL collective, whether it's a sponsor, a booster, whoever it is will be more than happy to pay Cooper Flagg. So if Cooper Flagg wants $10 million, what Brian Seeley's company has to do is they have to use an algorithm that gives you the worth of Cooper Flagg. And if the algorithm says that Cooper Flagg is a $10 million player, then the NIL money that can be given to Cooper Flagg is $10 million. But that $10 million doesn't count toward the $20.5 million that schools can give players. They don't have to give it to players. They can give it to players. And here's what you want to do if you're running a program. You don't give any of that $20.5 million to any of the stars. You let the stars get their money separately. You get the stars get money from different pots outside of the school. And you're going to have an enforcement bureau led by Brian Seeley that's going to have to then tell a player, hey, you just signed a $5 million deal with Bob's Burgers. Here's the problem. We only think you're worth $3 million. Therefore, that's the max you can get. If you want to get $5 million, you're going to have to take $2 million out of the $20.5 that school has to spend on you. Can you imagine the position that this group is in now? Any NIL deal over $600 gets looked at and has to be approved based on fair market value and a certain algorithm to tell you what fair market value is. Do you know how you can cheat that? Because it's not even the total amount of the deal that they're looking at, more than the average annual value, or taking into account what you're doing for that company. Someone on Twitter I give a lot of credit for, too, said, hey, here's an idea. I think a player should sign up to do 1 million appearances for $1 each. The market value of this guy's time is more than $1 per appearance. Brian Seeley will not be able, the algorithm will not be able to flag it because that's an underpay. $1, I can't believe you'd accept that, but good for you. The total is $1 million, so it gets looked at, but the per appearance would be $1, so it's going to slide right through the algorithm. And then once the deal is approved by this group, guess what the oversight is going forward? Zero. There is no oversight going forward, which means once the deal is signed to do 1 million appearances at $1 each, the company can call up the player and say, that was super nice of you. I don't think we're going to need you 1 million times. We'd love it if you could come once. And the player will say, that sounds reasonable. Do I still get my million? Of course you do, young man. And the player says, great, 1 million, 1 appearance. If that had been the deal from the start, the algorithm would have been unhappy and it would have been Cooper Flagg. And if it gets flagged, then it gets denied. Do you see the possibilities that I do for crazy lawsuits over what's valued and what's not when there's no enforceability by this new entity? Do you see the insanity of what teams can do when they have their new GMs, these colleges, and these GMs are saying, hey, we've got $20.5 million to spend. Let's not spend it this year. And certainly don't give too much to water polo. Please let those people fend for themselves. I don't care if we have to cancel the water polo sport. I don't care if we don't travel. They don't travel. We need to be good in football because that's where our bread is buttered. The other part about this settlement that is now approved, which means that's the law, folks. There are provisions in this deal that we don't talk about enough until they bubble over. And they're called arbitration provisions. I want to just teach you all, because you've heard it from me before, when you wonder why Roger Goodell is hearing a case regarding John Gruden and his fight to get money from the Oakland Raiders, or why Rob Manfred is the arbitrator of certain disputes between employees in baseball and their teams. It's that you sign the agreement that states that that's what you're going to be subject to if you have a problem. All of the stuff that you never read before you sign, believe me, it's not done to your benefit. It's always done to the company's benefit. The reason why you see arbitration provisions so often is that arbitration is more cost effective than going through the court system. Arbitration is in front of smart, learned arbitrators, not in front of a jury of your peers who may not understand the difference between EBITDA and dada. That's a kind of art. Hello. And EBITDA is fine. Forget it. Coco, that was so funny, but only to me, which you told me obviously last week, don't do things that only make you laugh. And I said, but that's so good. So why am I talking about these arbitration provisions again? Because guess what? Athletes and all of their deals with their schools, all of the NILs, they're all subject to arbitration, which means if you want to sue because you don't like what Brian Seeley's group did to you, good luck. You're going to be in arbitration. Remember the scenario I brought up about the $1 million per appearance or $1 per appearance? How do you get through these new rules? There's going to be a whole department of 18-year-old freaks and geeks whose sole job will be maximize my use of the 20.5, figure out how to get these players around this enforcement of NIL. It's going to happen. Just you wait. The most texts I got this weekend, Coco, were about Craig Kimbrel. Craig Kimbrel is a potential, where do you have him, Hall of Fame? Not first ballot. My guess is Craig Kimbrel makes it to Cooperstown. Craig Kimbrel, if you can watch this on YouTube or DraftKings, he's the one who his shoulders hunch over and his arm hangs down. God, our teams faced Craig Kimbrel so many times. I don't know if you can go back to Marlins from 2002 to 2017 against Craig Kimbrel. I'm almost positive that we never got a hit off that guy. Obviously, I only remember the bad when it comes to running a team, maybe everything. He was just good. But now he's done. He is finished. It happens. Father Time, you win. Craig Kimbrel, trying to hang on, was in AAA with the Braves. The Atlanta Braves called him up, and it was a big deal because for whatever reason, the Braves aren't playing well, which they're not. For whatever reason, the bullpen has been faltering and hurt, which it is. For whatever reason, the media and fans alike have this view of names. When it's a name you used to love, you feel as though that player is the player you're going to get. It never works that way. When you try to go to the well too many times, trust me, as a guy who goes to the well too many times, I assure you, eventually the water is stale and stinky. Craig Kimbrel is not a good pitcher anymore. Craig Kimbrel was brought up by the Braves because they needed an arm because they had just had an extra inning game. And everyone went crazy when one day later, Craig Kimbrel was put off the team. He was designated for assignment one day after being put on the roster. And the reason people are upset about it is that for whatever reason, you're under the impression that Craig Kimbrel was upset about this, as though the Braves didn't communicate to Craig Kimbrel what is going on. I can assure you that when they signed 9-time All-Star Craig Kimbrel to a contract and he was pitching in minor leagues, that's because he gave permission for him to pitch in the minor leagues. You can't assign Craig Kimbrel to the minor leagues. He's got to approve any assignment. And when he signs a contract, which is a minor league contract, what you do as part of those contracts with players who have the right not to pitch or play in the minor leagues is you get them to waive that right. You get them to extend permission to the team to have the player play in the minor leagues. This is standard front office. When you've got a player like Craig Kimbrel, and you are doing that provision, you speak to the agent and to the player. Hey, we don't have a spot. We'd like it for depth at AAA. If you want to go down there, don't feel like you have to buy the spread after every game, even though you're the richest one on the team. Don't feel concerned that you're not playing in front of a lot of fans. Go stay sharp. It gives you something to do so you don't have to drive the kids to school. And if we need you, we'll let you know. But don't count on it. Ding, ding, ding. The need happens. This is not one of those moments that's captured on YouTube where a young player gets promoted and it's the new social media craze. You don't do that with a 9-year all-star veteran. What you do is you call him and you say, Craig, we're going to be making a move after the game. We're going to add you to the roster. But Craig, it's going to be short. We're doing this as a bridge. It's a violation of how we deal with players in general, where we never tell players whether when they're brought up, it's going to be for a short or a long time. And the reason we don't tell players how long they're going to be in the big leagues is that if you tell them they're only coming up for a cup of coffee, you can bet your sweet bippy there's going to be a back, a hamstring, a shoulder, an elbow. There'll be something to put that player on the major league injured list so that player will get major league service time and paid at the major league rate. Again, there is no team in baseball who, when they call up a young player, says, you're here for the long run, or you're only here for a day, a week, or a month. You say nothing. Welcome to the show. Work hard. Good luck. Your locker's just over there. Get ready to carry candy to the bullpen. That type of stuff. But when you've got a player, a veteran like a Craig Kimbrel, it's totally different. You know that he's not going to take advantage of your injured list. You know he's not going to take advantage of the major league injured list. So therefore, you simply tell the player how it's going to be and what the circumstance is that is likely to happen, because you don't know for sure whether you're going to take him off the roster after a game, but you do know that there is the possibility, and you let the player know. And for whatever reason, fans have this view, why can't we just be honest? Why can't you just come out and tell the fans, we're bringing up Kimbrel, he's here for 24 hours? Because you don't know that for sure. Because there are players who could get hurt. There could have been something that would happen that Kimbrel would have stayed an extra day, an extra 4 days. It could have been the person taking his spot on the roster we thought was ready, but then is not totally ready because he didn't get the final check from the medical team that he needed. There are myriad things that can happen that screw up your plan as you do roster management, as you're sending players in, up, down. So fans are not a part of the equation. They're not a part of the conversation. What I would have liked the Braves to have done to alleviate some of this was to be more upfront, but the problem is they're going through something, man. They are so bad. I would like the Braves to have simply said, hey, yeah, we designated Craig Kimbrel. I know that sounds crazy, but Craig was aware the whole time of what we were doing. We had a roster situation, and this was the move that made the most sense at this time. I am all in favor of that type of discourse. I think it makes sense. On the other hand, when you don't have that communication, which, by the way, I didn't really have much as president of the Marlins in terms of truthful communication with you all, but truthful communication can really change a narrative. And in this case, one of the reasons the Braves had no particular reason to change this narrative is if they weren't the bad guys here, you'd go back to focusing on how bad the team is doing. When you can focus even for a day, a minute, or a post on how bad and unprofessional they were to tool and fool with Craig Kimbrel, that's pretty good for the Braves, because you're not talking about the fact that they absolutely are getting crushed. That could be a reason. Just remember what our Braves did. They had fought all the way back to over 500 back on May 18th. And since then, they've won 3 out of their last 17 games. It's just incredible. They are absolutely struggling in a way that could be season ending. They're losing games by a run, by 2 runs. 12 of the losses are by 1 or 2 runs. It just happens, Coco. It just happens. You know what else just happens? Stuff gets built like stadiums. Stuff gets fixed like roofs. The great people of St. Petersburg are all excited because you are going to host Major League Baseball again at Tropicana Field in front of a bursting crowd of 5,000 people under a brand new roof. I don't like the tone of that, Coco. I don't want to make fun of what they're doing. There was a hurricane that cost people billions of dollars, lives lost. Although I don't know that for sure. That seems a little strong if it didn't happen. You know, the Tropicana Field, the roof got ripped apart, became the symbol of that hurricane of last year. The nightmare that is the Rays season playing their home games at Steinbrenner Field. You know that Steinbrenner Field is a one-year stop, and they've got to get the Trop ready to go for next season. What you may not know is that the St. Petersburg City Council, just at the end of last week, they had a meeting, and they said, here's what we're going to approve. Another $5.3 million for repairs and expenses to Tropicana Field. They've approved $38.5 million so far. Remember, the entire cost that St. Petersburg has to do to fix the roof and all the back and forth with Rays ownership and their co-presidents, St. Petersburg is on the hook for about $56 million. The reason why they have to fix the Trop instead of just demolishing it or letting it be an eyesore in St. Petersburg is the lease they have with the team. That lease says if something happens to the building, they've got to fix the building so that the Rays have a place to play. The irony is that the Rays don't want to play there. They want to be gone from there so fast that it makes their tails spin. But baseball is requiring them to go back to Tropicana Field because they've got nowhere else to play. And they've got to get out of the spring training facility of the Yankees. And what it means is St. Petersburg is putting money into repairing for a field for a lease that expires after 2028. Forget putting lipstick on a corpse. This is throwing good money after bad. Tropicana Field has to get torn down at some point. Whether it's to redevelop, including a stadium, or to redevelop because what St. Petersburg is going to do is build affordable housing and commercial and retail and hotels and all the other things that were going to be part of the new ballpark. That is no longer a deal, even though it was announced as a done deal with hands shaking, flash bulbs flashing, Stuart Sternberg smiling. It was all horse hockey. There is no deal for a new ballpark in St. Petersburg. And any money that St. Petersburg Council is now spending is money that it's not putting toward either a new ballpark or other development in that same area. All because they are obligated to contractually do something that nobody wants other than Rob Manfred and the schedulers to make sure Tampa's got a place to play in the 2026 season. The fact of the matter is, it's a total nightmare scenario because the St. Petersburg Council has every right to look at the team and say, hey, we've already put $56 million into play here. You've got to count that as our contribution. And the Tampa Bay Rays come back and say, I have no idea what you're talking about. That's not a contribution to a new stadium. That's you under the obligations of your old stadium. And St. Petersburg says dollars are fungible, Stuart. Money is money. I didn't expect to have to spend this money on this. Now I had to, therefore I can't spend it on that. Can you imagine in your own life, in your own budget, when you've got $100 to spend on something you want, a piece of clothing, but then your heat breaks and you've got to spend $100 to fix your heat? Guess what? You spend the $100 to fix your heat and you start saving up for the $100 that you can't spend for disposable income on new clothes. We all make choices, priorities. I don't care how much money you have. Everybody's making choices. Everybody. It sounds crazy. Musk, Bezos, Gates, Buffett. Choose whoever you want, the richest person you can think of. Everyone's making choices. Choices, as you know from me, have consequences just like actions do. St. Petersburg had no choice but to allocate this money. But what it means is they are no longer going to have the ability to make the choice to give to the Rays. And that's going to be a problem that baseball is going to have to face. But they are kicking it down the can in a way that makes my eyes water. Reminds me so much of Miami. Michael Jordan was my GOAT. Michael Jordan got in the way of me getting titles as a Knicks fan. Michael Jordan is just a nightmare. When he's got the ball, it's going to be a W. Then Michael Jordan said, I've got an idea once I retired. I think I'm going to own a basketball team, and I'm going to be so good at it. So he bought the Bobcats, Hornets. Turns out he wasn't so good at it. He took L's on the court, but a big W off the court. He managed to increase the value of his underlying asset tremendously. And when he sold the Hornets, he did very, very well. This is the same Michael Jordan with the eye to business who wanted a piece of the Silhouette logo. That's not the name of it. What's the name of the Jordan logo? Silhouette is the Jerry West NBA logo. Nike has a logo. Jumpman. Thank you, Coco. He wanted a piece of that going forward, a piece of the Jordan brand, and he got it. Michael Jordan has taken another foray into business. Did you know that he owns the NASCAR team? We've covered this a little bit on the show, but something happened yesterday. Anytime I get the opportunity to tell you that Jeffrey Kessler lost a case, I'm going to take it. Jeffrey Kessler is a labor lawyer who represents unions. He represents the aggrieved against the man. He doesn't like the man. And Jeffrey Kessler loses. And when he does, I like it. Jeffrey Kessler went against me one time. One time. Good luck, Jeffrey. Didn't win a motion. Nothing. We crushed him. It's easy to win. Here's a little side note. If you're trying to win lawsuits all the time, have the facts and the law on your side, and you can end up winning all the time. It's amazing. Well, here's the lawsuit that Jeffrey Kessler was trying to do, and we covered it a tiny bit. It's a pretty nuanced and fascinating lawsuit, actually. When you are in NASCAR and you've got a NASCAR team, you want to sign a charter and become a franchise of NASCAR. And NASCAR is owned by the France family, and they have unilateral right to decide who signs a charter agreement and who doesn't. And the way they do it is they've got a very France family friendly charter agreement, and they give it around to different teams, and they say, hey, if you want to be a charter member and have charter status, sign this agreement. Now, you're right. This agreement's a little tough on you, but what's your alternative? If you don't sign the charter agreement, you can still race on our tracks, but you're not going to get access to the type of money, both sponsorship and prize money, that you would get by being a franchisee. Think about like McDonald's. When you want to be a franchisee of McDonald's, you get all the bells and whistles of the Quarter Pounder and the Big Mac. There is nothing that stops you from starting a hamburger shop on the same corner. But when you want to start a McDonald's shop, that means you get the full weight of the main office, of their marketing, of their ingredients. Think about NASCAR teams. You can fund and finance your own NASCAR team and have them run and race wherever you want. But if you're not getting TV money, if you're not getting prize money, you're spending a whole hell of a lot of money where winning, losing, it doesn't even pay. So therefore, these teams, one of which Jordan owns, needs to be a charter franchise. They need to sign the document. Michael Jordan stood up and said, I'm sorry, this is horse hockey. I don't want to sign this charter agreement because it is so one-sided. It is so unfair that I'm better off not signing it. And the France family said, no problemo. C'est pas grave. Don't sign it. And Michael Jordan said, hold on. I think we're going to file a lawsuit. And in this lawsuit, we're going to hire Jeffrey Kessler. And we're going to try to prove that we have been hurt, and I mean hurt so badly financially, for not signing this charter agreement that it is practically anti-competitive. Guess what? Michael Jordan got a preliminary injunction put in place that allowed him to continue as a charter member of NASCAR and run in races this year and collect money as though he was a charter member. Everything was coming up roses until there was an appeal by the France family, and the Fourth Circuit there's this, I was going to say the Sugar Bowl. That's weird. There's the Supreme Court. Right under the Supreme Court is the Court of Appeals. There are different circuits in our country. The Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals said, I don't know why the District Court in North Carolina gave this preliminary injunction, but guess what? We're going to vacate it, which means the rules that we put in place, that the court put in place, that said that NASCAR would have to treat Michael Jordan as a chartered team for the 2025 season, forget it. If they don't want to sign the document, they do not sign the document, but you don't have to treat them like a charter member team. You don't have to give them any money. You don't have to do anything. Jeffrey Kessler, the lawyer for Michael Jordan, saw that and said, uh-oh, Houston, we have a small problem here. Michael Jordan took an L that is major because he has to finance his team, and he has to do it without the benefit of being a part of NASCAR. So Jeffrey Kessler said, let me make sure we win the PR war at least. And he released a statement. His statement was a classic, Coco. We are disappointed by today's ruling by the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals and are reviewing the decision to determine our next step. Side note, when you lose an appeal or you get a preliminary injunction vacated, you can have a very quick strategy meeting of what your next step is, and that's either you give up or you keep going. If you've got the money to pay the bills, you keep going. But let's just give the benefit of the doubt to Kessler. Then Jeffrey Kessler said, this ruling is based on a very narrow consideration. He then went on to say what the narrow consideration is. What people do when they lose a lawsuit is they say, yeah, it's true. We may have lost, but really we're fine because we only lost on a little teensy-tiny issue that barely has anything to do with our other big case, which we're going to win on. So even though you're accusing us and painting us as losers, we are big winners because this vacating of the preliminary injunction was such a small sliver of truth that I'm not even schwitzing. God bless you, Jeffrey Kessler. You got beaten, like badly. But then Kessler ended with the great lawyer statement ender. We remain confident in our case and committed to racing for the entirety of this season as we continue our fight to create a fair and just economic system that is free of anti-competitive monopolistic conduct. Woo-wee! Them is big words you're using, Mr. Kessler. You drop monopolistic and anti-competitive, and boom, the antennas go up like you're watching Channel J at midnight. And the antennas are saying, wow, we can't allow that. We've got an entire government that is looking out for anti-competitive and monopolistic conduct. Or are they? They used to be. They may not be anymore. They could be. But either way, when we say those words, that's got to get people sprung into action, doesn't it? Not so fast. How does this end? This ends, I'm afraid, with tears and a journey. Michael Jordan will not win this case. He doesn't have to be a charter member of NASCAR and the France family. You are not forced in any way to sign that deal. If you want to go race on a different track, a non-NASCAR track, you want to find a way to make a living elsewhere, have fun. You don't have a right because you start a basketball team to join the NBA, do you? Hey, I've got a rec league. Wouldn't mind if that were part of the NBA to get part of that TV deal. What? Nope. Doesn't work that way. Hey, I'm putting myself a California Penal League team. Can we get a piece of that new TV deal that's being negotiated right now? Don't quite think so. It's going to be very interesting what's going to happen going forward and whether or not Jordan and his team are going to figure out whether or not the juice is any longer worth the squeeze. Because the reality is the money you spend by crashing in a race, by fixing your cars and everything else you do, when there's no light at the end of the rainbow tunnel that's full of gold and it's just pixie dust, my guess is you go into shutdown. Money, 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 money. I'm not embarrassed to tell you that everyone likes money. Even people who have money like money. People who don't have money like money. They want money. They think money is the answer to all their problems. Rich people are generally unhappy and want more money, never satisfied. Total Aaron Burr, Alexander Hamilton. Poor people want to have something they've never had, thinking that they'll feel totally different. Then they win the lottery and they're bankrupt and potentially behind bars a few months, years later. Some players end up broke. You've seen Billy Corbin and others cover that. It's a whole thing. Owners are fascinating to me because they're really wealthy from businesses they've run, founded, started, operated. Whether it was a family business or not, they have found a way. And then they get into sports ownership and all of a sudden they get wacky. They stop thinking about business principles for a couple of years because they're thinking about ego principles. They're thinking below the belt how cool they will look, how big they will look when they are standing getting a piece of jewelry and champagne sprayed in their goggle-covered eyes. When owners need money, they do several things. 1, they lower their payroll. 2, they raise their revenue. 3, they go to their league, which they're a member of, whether it's MLB or NBA or NHL or NFL, and say, hey, we'd like more money from central office. We get 1/30 of all of the revenue, all of the net operating income from the operating of the commissioner's office. We'd like to cut some expenses there so you make more money, so we get more money. That's Jimmy Dolan. Or, as an owner, you go to the league office and say, I need a big slug of money. How about if we do expansion? Let me tell you about expansion because there is talk of expansion in baseball. There's talk of expansion in basketball. Expansion is a way to get owners current day money at the expense of future day receipts. Let me explain. If there is a $32 million expansion fee, and I'm making up the number because it's in the billions, but I want to do this for math. If you are 30 teams going to 32, and the teams that are going to be 31 and 32 pay $30 million to expand. That's their fee. And that money gets distributed. Each team, stay with me, gets $1 million. It gets split evenly amongst all the existing teams. So the owner of a new expansion team has to write a $30 million check to the league, and that check gets split 30 ways, $1 million each. Then that new owner, in return, has expenses like payroll, like infrastructure, potentially building a new arena, upkeeping an arena. But that expansion owner will get revenue. It gets to sell tickets, not to the CBA, but to a NBA level game. It gets to collect on food, beverage, merchandise. And way more importantly, that new team, that new owner gets to share in the national revenue that comes from the media deals. So if the media deals were paying all 30 teams $100 million a year, I'm making up the number. But instead of splitting it by 30, you have to split it by 32. Do you agree that the existing teams would start making less money every year versus more money? And in return, they've gotten a bulk amount of money up front, the expansion fee. And the return for that is you get less money than you expected in later years because you're splitting the same size pie with more forks. Does that sound familiar? Is it ringing a bell to the 94% of you who have been listening prior to June? Do you remember when I talked to you about how it works with TV deals, how it works with some sponsorship deals, where you get a big amount of money up front, and what happens is you then get less than you should in later years. Remember when we talked about the Aramark deal with Vegas? We talked about the reality that if Aramark is putting money into the Vegas stadium, what it means is that the A's will get less percentage of concessions going forward. You always pay later for what you take now. That is a very simple economic principle. And the reason why this is such an issue today is that Adam Silver finally came out during the NBA Finals and said, expansion, I got to tell you, not so sure we're doing it anymore, because there was a thought that Vegas and Seattle were in like Flynn. It was done. That whether it was going to be LeBron or Shaq, there was going to be a team in Vegas, that the Seattle team was going to get its records back from Oklahoma City. They were going to get its Supersonics back, and somehow Jack Sikma would be involved. But then Adam Silver said, man, we're talking about expansion, but it's not automatic. It's got to depend upon your perspective of the future of the league. Expansion, in a way, is selling equity in the league, which it is. And if you believe in the league, you don't necessarily want to add partners. Think about that statement. If you believe that the league as it stands is able to get the media revenue, which it's getting starting next year, and that you're bullish on what the value is of your team continuing to rise in a way that is higher than the market. If you believe in all that, why would you bring on new partners? If you don't have a need to pay down debt, if you don't have a need to have more teams in order to extract more broadcast revenue from your partners, then why would you bring on a partner? The purpose of bringing on partners is to add value to the underlying asset, to add value to your company. If it's going to take value away, why would you do it? So Adam Silver basically came out and said, for all of you thinking about expansion, I'll tell you right now, the expansion fees are going to be BIGGG, to the point that you're going to have night sweats. You're going to be paying billions of dollars in expansion fees in order to get the right to join our growing, unbelievable league where teams can sell for $5-6 billion. How does that change? It changes if the existing teams look at their local TV money and they say, wait a second, this new regional sports network that's not bankrupt, God, these deals stink. We're not making close to the amount of money we thought. And then these new channels that we started, like in DC, God, those aren't making money either. We're totally screwed. We need an influx of money. Let's talk about expansion again. Because then you do the math differently. And then you need a partner. Because all of a sudden you've got payroll going up. You've got players making $70 million a year. You have an expectation based on what you think your revenue stream is going to be. And then, poof, it goes away. Now, in a salary cap league, if revenue goes down, so does salary. But when owners are dealing with a loss of a revenue stream, which is a media revenue stream, and they're part of the ownership of that revenue stream, they counted on that revenue stream to bolster their other businesses, whether it's on-court basketball or other, yacht or art businesses. It's quite a complicated situation where you're in a position when you're examining expansion, you say and think to yourself, either yay or nay, but we are not going to decide now. And you do it for a particular reason. You do it because it's just business. Adam Silver looked out and said, sorry, LeBron and Shaq, this is nothing personal.